Kay, and welcome to Sweatpants and Strategy.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you. I dressed up for you.
Yes, you look nice.
Thank you again for doing this. We've known each other for a couple years, and
I know.
this podcast is kind of all about, or I want to champion women in the SBA, and I thought you had a really, really great story. So definitely wanted to hop right in and, tell me about the beginnings of your career.
The beginning of my career once I
As
graduated college or
kind
as
of like what we were talking about with yeah, like when you graduated and you were the first CPA. I love
sure.
that.
Yeah. So after I graduated from college, I think, 21 years old when I graduated. I was looking for a job, and my background was accounting and finance. And I wanted to be a CPA, so I applied I lived in Kalamazoo, Michigan, at the couple CPA firms that were there, but I wanted to work for one of the big ones. So Ernst and Young was there, and I applied and I was rejected at first. And then they realized that they had a couple of government contracts. They did the city audit of Kalamazoo and a county audit. And those institutions back then, this was years ago, realized that it would be a good idea if they had some diversity from their auditors, their audit team. So I was hired because diversity was defined back then as one black and one female, and I was the female. So that's exactly how I got my job. It wasn't that I had almost all A's or anything. Nothing about my credentials. It was literally that I was female.
Because you're
So when I started, I was the first female on what they called the professional staff, which was automatically humiliating to the other women in the office, right? Because they were called secretaries at that point in time, and not even admins. They were called secretaries. And I showed up at 21 years old, or 22 at the time, and thought I knew everything about accounting, and started there. But it was really, really tough. It was tough to be the first female on audit jobs, and the guys all looked at me like we just hired her because she's a woman, and she doesn't know anything. And it was tough to make a go of it there. But I was there. I was very successful. I felt like after about 6 tax seasons, I went to the partner in charge. They had September 30 year ends, and at the time, you got your bonus check on October 1st.
okay.
So you had a meeting always with the partner in charge of the office, and he literally, we'd had conversations about, I was a tax manager at that point, which was highly unusual in the United States, and I wanted to be a partner. And he said to me, well, he said, we don't have any women partners here. He said, but he said, if you really do well, maybe we could find a spot for you someplace, maybe like in New York City, sitting in a corner office or something. You could be like our token woman. He actually said those words. So I took my check, I shook his hand, and I said, I'm done. I'm out of here. I
Good for
quit.
you. Token
So
woman.
that was my beginning in really in accounting. But I learned how to read a tax return then. I learned all about income taxes. And so it served me well in my SBA career because nobody could pull out the wool over my eyes about their tax returns or any of the schedules, or there was no BSing me about any of that stuff later, but I didn't know it at the time. So I left and I was offered a job for a company called Upjohn Pharmaceutical, and they were
Okay.
based in Kalamazoo. And I went into the international tax division there. And again, I was the first female that they hired. And my area of responsibility was Europe and the Middle East. And I was responsible for calculating the effect of the foreign subsidiaries on the U.S. tax provision at the time. So I had to go over there. And when they had local country audits, I had to go and represent the United States. But when I went, I realized that Upjohn wouldn't let me travel alone because I was a female. So I always had to have a guy go with me.
That's
Literally, like as
amazing.
a,
That's incredible.
I know, it's incredible. So every place I went, my boss had to go, or some other man had to go with me because they didn't want to send a female by herself over to the subsidiaries. I'm sure that's all changed now, but at the time it was like, really? It's like,
Yeah, that's not, I mean, I didn't even know that existed, that they
I
even
know,
had to
I
do that.
know.
What was,
This was a long time ago. Remember, this was in the early 70s. So it's
I,
a long
that,
time ago.
it
Yeah.
is a long time ago, but I I would think that in the 70s it would be more forward thinking, but I guess at the time they thought what? That someone's gonna do some, I mean, did they
Yeah,
give
they didn't know what to expect from me, right? They didn't know what it would be like to send somebody and stay in a hotel by themselves, and how are they going to get around? And there was no Uber then or anything, right? So I had to
right?
take the trains and things like that. So they just felt like it was more appropriate and better, more politically correct if they sent a guy with me.
Sure, let's do that.
So let's do that, right? So that's what they
Let's do
did.
that. And I guess, thinking about going back to being the only woman in both of these industries, were you, I mean, I guess on an everyday, were you intimidated? Or, you walk
Um,
into the office and,
I was always intimidated. I spent my life being intimidated, I think. I was always really shy. And when I was growing up, my mother always used to say to me, bless her heart, she always used to say, don't talk to strangers, always look down. Um, you know, so I was taught literally to not talk to other people that I didn't know. So that kind of stuck with me for a long time. So it had kind of serious ramifications on, like when I'm in even now when I'm in meetings, I hesitate to speak up often because I'm like, it's not my place to talk, right? It's not my place.
oh,
And
that's
I have
so,
to really stop myself and say, no, it is your place, right? It is your place to talk. So,
yeah, that's so like, yeah, yeah, going back and you remember this advice
oh yeah.
and you're like, a centerpiece for SBA. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use
Oh,
centerpiece. Like a like a I got nervous, just, talking to you.
oh, no way. It's like I didn't make my first SBA loan till I was 40.
You
I
were
think
telling me
about
that.
the people here at Live Oak, and I think about they get really concerned about, I'm not moving at the right pace, I'm not doing this, and I'm not progressing fast enough. And I think back, wow, I think I didn't make my first loan till I was 40 years old, but I had all the pieces to be what I felt would be a good lender ultimately. So I had a Series 7 securities license. I had spent a little time selling securities for a company that ultimately failed. Hopefully not because of me, but um, I had a commercial real estate license, so I understood real estate. I understood real estate brokerage. I understood kind of the buy sell aspect of a transaction. I definitely had the finance and accounting background. So I had the pieces to put it together to be a lender, but I'd never made a loan in my life until I met Chip Mahan, who's the founder of Live Oak.
So how did that happen where, hey, Kay, like let's start, you know,
Yeah. Well, I was let's see, back in the early 90s, late 80s, financing was very difficult to come by. And I was doing a little bit of freelance. I had my own tax practice at that point, and I was doing a little bit of freelance real estate work. And my clients always needed financing. They could never find financing. And somebody introduced me to Vince Daly at VST Financial, a company up in Atlanta, who made SBA loans. And I didn't even know how to package a loan. I didn't even know what you needed to include, but I put some stuff together, right? And I sent it up to him by FedEx because that was the only way you could get it there.
right.
And sent it to him and said, would you consider providing financing for this? And he called me on the phone and said, yeah. And he said, what do you want for it? And I'm thinking, what do I want? He said, well, I said, what do you normally pay? That is just literally, I
Yeah, because
didn't
you
even
didn't
know
know.
that I would get paid for doing that, right?
Right.
And he said, well, we'll pay you a point. I'm like, did the math real quick. I'm thinking, oh, a point?
Okay.
Okay, all right, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So I sent him a few deals, and pretty soon I get a call from Chip, who this was VST Financial. So Chip was the owner and the president of a company called Vine Street Trust, a bank in Lexington, Kentucky that
Okay.
owned VST Financial. He called me and he said, we're not going to pay you referral fees anymore. He said, if you want to work with us, you're going to have to come up here and you're going to have to join our team. I said, well, I don't know anything about banking or lending. He said, well, come up here and talk to us. So that was in the early 90s. And I joined VST Financial or Vine Street Trust in the early days. And back then, I was the only female again, but it was Vince Daly, Brian Falk, me, and one other guy, named Ken Moore. And back then, we sat around a table and said, well, we're not going to be generalists. We're not going to make all kinds of loans for everybody. We are going to learn a couple of industries and do a really good job, and we're going to be verticalized. So this was in the 90s. So this
Oh,
isn't anything new here at Live Oak.
mm.
So we went around the table and said, "What do you want?" And I got hotels. I got veterinarians first, and then somebody else got hotels, and somebody got assisted living. I think we were doing chickens back then. I don't know, but anyway,
Ah,
but you only worked on one kind of loan. And
huh.
so we learned the idea of verticalization, how it served us back then. And ultimately, Chip put the world's first bank on the internet, and that morphed us into us, not me, but Chip then moved on into the software business and then before he started Live Oak. So we had a long history together before here.
Before there, and you were still the first woman. Were you in at
Mhm.
all? I
Intimidated by that? Yeah.
guess, yeah, I was just gonna
I
say
mean, I think part of it was Vince and Brian were super helpful in teaching me SBA lending. Remember, I was 40 then, right? So I didn't know any of the terms. So they put me through a banking school that was really, really tough for two, it was a 2 week intensive school with exams every day and serious exams, and just to learn the lingo and what a balance sheet is and how backwards it is compared to what I was used to in accounting, right, as a public
right,
accountant. And um, then they just started. They said, "Here's the SOP. Read it."
and that's it. And then so when
That
they
was it.
that was it. They sent you to school and you learned it. And is that were you credit trained there? Or is it not
I
for
was credit trained
training?
at Vine Street Trust, yeah, VST Financial. Mhm.
So it's too bad that like companies today don't offer, I feel like companies today don't offer that training, like that kind of training to the next generation.
Right. I also think that it takes. You have to be motivated, right? I don't know about the lenders that are starting in the SBA world today, but the first thing, because I'm a student, right? I loved college, I loved classes and things. I mean, the first thing I did was read the SOP, and I would read it every single year, a couple times a year. I mean, at a minimum when I was a lender.
Yeah, because everything changes. Like you go, oh, wait a minute, it
Yeah.
changed.
Hmm.
So every time it changes, everybody, that's the most probably one of the most important things, definitely in SBA, where, if I mention to an underwriter, do you know
Hmm.
the SOP? And I know when they say, what? So not
Yeah.
definitely not qualified, but let's go back for a second when you first started and, kind of like now. I mean, in a couple of my podcasts, I had a lender on and she mentioned in the handbook, she can only wear skirts and you have to wear makeup. Did anything like that happen to you when you first
Oh,
started?
it started, I actually got a memo that somebody made up at Ernst and Young the day I started there. They sent me a memo saying about the length of my skirts. I had to wear a suit every day. The length of my skirts. I had to wear heels. I mean, I had to wear hose. It was just like crazy. Didn't say makeup, but it did say all the rest of the things. It
Uh,
was wild.
isn't it wild, like
I
compared to
know. To
today?
now, right.
Now and now, women, I mean, look at me. I have my dad's, tie on and
Yeah.
you've I feel like, you forged you were the one of the women that forged the way to do my job. And it's you don't find somebody like you every day.
Oh, thanks. That's sweet of you. I know. I just think that, I learned the hard way. I don't recommend it. I mean, I what came from a family that was quite poor, although I didn't feel poor at the time. I just know now, looking back, that we had no financial means at all in my family. And I mean, it was, we had no new clothes. Everything was like on layaway, right? The old
Yeah.
layaway. I mean, it was like it took months for me to get a dress or something to go to school, and it was a big deal, right? And I think that when I graduated from high school, I mean, I worked from the day that I was old enough to legally to work in high school. And when I graduated from high school, there was like no party or anything. My parents sat me down and my dad said, "Well, if you're going to continue to work and live here, you're going to have, you need to pay rent." I'm like,
That's what
And
my dad did. It's
and
funny.
it was like it didn't it surprised me, but it was like, oh yeah, that seems fair. But today that would I feel like that would never happen to anybody. And then they said, well, we want you to go to college, but you have to work full time because you're going to have to pay for it. And so I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I worked full time and went to school full time. So in college, so there was no sorority, there were no social events, there was no partying, no
Wow.
drinking, not even sports for me. I mean, I literally worked full time and went to school full time. And, I didn't know what to major in. I didn't like any of my subjects, right? I didn't like any of it. But I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I better get a degree in something that's going to help me. So
Right.
I thought, well, at least what people need accountants, whether the economy is good or the economy is bad. So I said, okay, I'm going to be an accountant. That literally was my thought process.
Wow.
And there were many days when I thought, why in the world did I do this, right? But I just stuck with it. And that actually, caused me, because I had to work full time and go to school, it caused me to have to be organized. So it taught me organizational skills and discipline really, really early in my life.
Wow. I can't. Can
And
you imagine today that I know
oh,
for sure 100% that, just looking at my daughter and she's 12 and trying to teach her the basics, it's just a different language.
yeah, and I don't recommend that upbringing to anybody, right? I think that the appropriate way to raise a child, I don't have children, sadly, but I
Take
think
mine.
is to nurture, but is to give them confidence, right? My
Right.
parents really believed that I was to be seen and not heard, right? That old expression.
Yeah.
And that doesn't build confidence in someone.
No.
And they treated me the way they were treated, right? So now I feel like the people that start here, the young people, have so much more confidence in themselves and their abilities than I did when I started. I was just timid. I was just afraid of everything. So
So
it took a lot of therapy and a long time to get so I could even talk to people, right? Because in this business, that's what I have to do.
yes, that's probably one of the things that makes us, videos, they have to, or even people in general, you have to learn how to talk, you have, do the relationships, build the relationships. And, that's what makes people successful in this industry. But at the same time, though, our industry thrives on, being just relationships. And, going back to you for a minute, having that, work ethic and having that experience opens it up to other people. So, what would you say to women in not only in our industry, but how do you get there? Like how you're not, you're successful.
Right. So I would say when you go to college, one, go to college, and
Yeah.
two, pick a degree, pick something to study that you can actually get a job in and support yourself in the way that think about what you want, right? Think about how you want to live, whatever that is.
Right.
But train yourself, right? Go to school and take the classwork that'll enable you to get there, right? Sometimes I see people who, want jobs at Live Oak and other places too, who have maybe gone through school and studied, I'm making this up a little bit, but let's say social studies, right? And they want a job at Live Oak, right? Or it's like, well, what can you do? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a degree in hockey, but definitely want to work for you.
Yes, that's
So
right.
yes.
I would say don't do that. Think about you never know what you're going to do, right? I didn't know when I started college. I didn't even know what accounting was all about, right? But I just thought I could get a job in it when I was graduated. I knew I had to take care of myself and support myself. So I had to be hireable. And that's what I decided to do.
And then moving on to, definitely women coming up in the
Mm.
SBA, I think
Yeah.
it's getting
Don't-
smaller and
mhm.
smaller where we're bridging the gap. What kind of advice would you offer to up and coming women?
I don't know. Remember, I was 40 before I made my first
I
SBA.
know.
So
That's
I would say always be open to outcome, right? Don't ever always be open to new ideas. I mean, I didn't think I wanted to be in banking. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about banking when Chip said, if you want to work with us We're not going to pay you referral fees anymore, but you can come up and talk about a job. I was like, I could have said, no, I'm not doing that. I like the referral fees and I'm just going to stay and, broker deals. But I didn't. I thought, well, I should at least go up and talk to this guy.
Right. At least try it.
At
And
least try, at least listen. So that's probably key. Learn how to listen, right? I went up there and the people around here know this story, but it's absolutely true. So the day that I remember, this is the early 90s. So the day that I arrived at Vine Street Trust in Lexington, Kentucky for my interview, I walked in the front door and it was just a beautiful bank lobby. It was dark, like dark wood, dark green carpet. It was gorgeous. And I walked in, they introduced me to Chip. I sat in his office, and that was the day that he got his first ever laptop computer. And Chip is kind of, I'd say this if he was sitting right here. He's kind of a shiny object in the room kind of guy. And so his laptop was sitting over here, and I was sitting directly in front of him. And it was like, hi, welcome to Vine Street. I knew he wanted to see his new laptop, right? So
yeah.
he introduced me to David Lucht, who's one of the founders of Live Oak, a dear friend of mine. And he said, well, talk to David. He's the chief credit officer of the bank. I think that was his title at the time. And I walked in and I sat down, and David had a mahogany desk, his full suit and tie, and he has hands on the table folded like this. And the first words he said to me were, he said, well, I have to say I'm not in favor of hiring you. First words out of his mouth. I was like, take a breath. And I said, well, can we talk about it? That's what I said. Can we talk about it?
And
And he explained why. And it made perfect sense why he didn't want to hire me. And his strategy was just, he said, when I learned credit, he said, you don't know credit. And I said, correct. He said, when I learned it, he said, I was seated outside of my credit manager's office and I was in and out of his office all day long. And that's how I learned to be a good credit manager, was because I was physically close. He said, you live in Tampa, Florida. How are you going to learn credit? And that's how the conversation started. Then we worked through it and we formulated a way that I could spend time with Vince and Brian and go back and forth and go to school, go to banking school, and over time learn, how to put together a credit memo. Because at that time, Chip believed in the womb to tomb theory. So you originated your loans, you underwrote them. I had to do the credit memo. I had to submit it to credit for approval. I had to actually go to the closing, explain the closing documents to the borrower, and after closing, had to gather the post-closing documents to service the loan. So I learned a lot about SBA that way because I would say I don't know how many lenders, even at Live Oak. I think we have, how many lenders do we have? Probably at least 150 or 60 here
are you serious?
in total. Yeah. And I would say that I don't know how many of them have actually gone to a closing and know what's in those closing documents, right? Could actually explain each document
Yes.
to the borrower. So I feel like that womb to tomb theory, again, was a key component to my success because I did understand what I was asking for.
So do you think now with you have 150 lenders, we're going to get back to in a second, having a BDO experience that would probably be beneficial for that? You
We
think?
don't believe in handling it that way here at Live Oak. It would probably be beneficial to have some sort of a training program, right, where people had to actually understand what the closing documents are. But at Live Oak, we don't want our lenders spending time gathering closing documents or even things after a deal goes into underwriting. It's like we want them to do a really, really great job on the front end of getting to know the borrower and doing their write-up and digging in on the deal. And then once they transition the loan to underwriting and then ultimately to credit and closing, hopefully, we want the lender back out in the field, bringing in more deals.
So
That's
do they give up not give up the relationship, but do they keep in touch with the borrower as the process?
totally, totally. And the referral source, yes. Although each person in the food chain here is required to talk directly with the borrower.
Ah,
So it's not just the lender who has that relationship. We want the underwriter to talk to the borrower and the closer both. And it's just one more person who gets to know the borrower or the applicant better and maybe asks a different question or asks a question in a different way that gets that information that maybe the lender didn't. And it's a key part of our process.
I was going to say, do you think that is what attributes you to being the number one lender relationships and having everybody talk to the borrower?
Um, Here's what I think is part of the secret sauce here. A lot of our closers and underwriters we have trained them here since they started. The entry level position at Live Oak is loan servicing. So we recruit from colleges, 22-year-olds. We hope the best and the brightest in their classes and bring them in and train them. And part of our training for them is how to use these things, right? Um,
Yes.
so they're assigned, let's say, 125 borrowers the day they start.
Whoa.
They're responsible for those individuals, right? Their loans, and they have to gather quarterly financial statements. They have to actually do something with the financial statements and communicate with the borrower. They have to give their personal cell phone numbers to every customer. And they have to, when a customer calls them, they actually have to call them back. They can't text them, they can't email, they actually have to return the call. So we teach them early to return every call every day. And we teach them that communication and transparency is key.
So,
So by the
okay,
time they get to be closers, and we tell them, you got to give this to all of your people you're closing, they don't flinch.
they don't flinch. So
They don't flinch.
what is is there any turnover or the percentage of, let's just say you hire, I don't know, 10 loan servicing people when I was intimidated when you said 125 customers. Is there a lot of turnover in that spot?
The turnover is growth, right? It's people who have been trained in that group and they move to other positions in the bank.
I mean, that's crazy. So that's probably again one of the things that
That's
attributes.
one of the things that I would say um, is attributable to our success. And it's the really simple things. It's like you have to call everybody back every day.
Yeah.
It's so simple, and yet it's so hard to do. But if you learn it when you just start here, it's not a surprise to you as you move through the bank, right? It's like, oh, yeah, you have to return every call every day.
Well, yeah. I mean, this generation I see now, it's like you put your head down and they're texting, they don't know how to communicate. And sometimes when I'm
Right.
interviewing, whether it's a closer or, even like a BDO, they don't know how to communicate sometimes. And I feel bad for them because they're so not, it's something
Yeah.
I've never seen before. So, but
And
the
I think we're really, really focused on two things here. We believed when we started the bank, and I wasn't here on day one. I think I'm employee number 20, but I was close to the beginning. And we figured out that people only want to, we think we're really cool. We got cool buildings, nice campus, a lot of technology, this nice podcast room, But it's like people only want to know two things from us. One, am I approved for my loan? And when do I get my money? That's it.
that's it.
They don't care about the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
They want to be treated fairly. They want to know where they are in the process. People here know where they are in the process. Our customers do. So that's
All along the way.
mhm.
So
There's no black hole either. It's the same for underwriters, right? I know so many BDOs that I've hired here, lenders here, they come from institutions where underwriting is the black hole, right? It's like
yeah.
they have all they can say to their borrower is, "Oh, your loan's in underwriting." Well, how long will it be there? It's like, well, it's in underwriting. Typically, I should hear something any day now. Here, when the lender transitions the loan to underwriting, there's usually a little kickoff call with the underwriter, the borrower, and the lender. Um, they trade cell phone numbers at that point on that call, and the borrower knows that the underwriter has his or her file. and that they're reviewing it. And that underwriter is going to come up with questions that they have, and they might be questions that have asked before, but they're going to ask them again. And that we tell the customers, put the underwriter's cell phone number in yours. And if you see it pop up on your phone, answer it, because at Live Oak Bank, the underwriters typically have 10 business days to do their jobs. And so the customer knows it generally takes 10 business days because the underwriters do the heavy lifting here on the deal, in my opinion. And they get the deal ready for the credit approval, right? So the customer isn't calling the lender the next day saying, well, have you heard anything? Um, the answer is, of course, no, right? It's like it
Right.
typically takes 10 days, and you've got the underwriter's cell phone number. So if it goes a few days and you haven't heard anything, just text them or call them. They'll respond back so that a customer knows where they stand.
That's the
It's the
most
same thing with credit approval and the same thing for closing.
that's incredible. That's I
Mhm.
haven't
It's simple.
it's simple, but yet, some institutions don't let, underwriters and closers talk to
Talk to, I
the
know.
borrower. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, it's kind of like a balance, I guess.
It's like you have to ask yourself, why not though? It's
Uh,
like, what are they afraid of, right?
What are they afraid of? We could probably write a book,
Yeah.
it's all about SBA. But also too, though, the BDO plays also, you said, an important part, which I cannot believe you have 150 lenders?
Okay, so let's see. 46 BDOs. We had 6 BDOs start yesterday.
Six?
Hmm.
Okay, you guys are rocking. I mean, out of those six, actually, this is another. I know I'm all over the place, but what was a couple of things that stand out when you are talking to a potential BDO besides their pipeline, which is a big thing, but still.
It's a big thing. Yeah, it's a big thing. Well, we want to know. I spend a lot of time with each BDO. You call them BDOs, we call them generalists, but
Generally,
lenders, right? Senior lenders we hire. Um, what do we talk about? Um, it, I talk to them first about why. Who are you and why do you want to leave your current employer? What's happening where you are that caused you to call me? Like, we don't know each other, right? Why are you calling me? And I say it in a nice way, of course, not the way I just said it to you,
no, but what is
but
the most?
I want to know why. What's
Yeah.
happening at their current shop? Why are they running away? Why are they seeking employment elsewhere? And how long have they been where they? I want their story first. I want to know what their pain point is. Is it that they can't get their deals approved? Is it they can't get them closed? Or maybe there's a merger and acquisition happening. Whatever it is that's causing them to want to reach out to me.
What's the most common answer that you get from the BDOs wanting to leave?
The good BDOs get frustrated if the process breaks down, no matter how much volume they can do at their current institution, if the process breaks down and they can't either get an answer or they can't get their loan through closing, that's when they're most frustrated. It's not really about pay. Pay is important, don't get me wrong, but it really is about what is the process going to be like at Live Oak, and is it going to be better than where I'm at now?
True. Well, I mean, you go back to you guys set the precedents, you changed salary all in all for
Mm.
BDOs. So you believe that they should get paid first. And tell me
Yes,
a little bit about that
right. We still
without
believe.
giving trade away secrets.
Yeah, no, no, yeah, we still believe that. We still believe that we want to pay significant base salaries and not put people on commission ever because we, first of all, we trust them. So we pay them on day one as if they've made their goals. Yeah. But that's a two-sided coin, right? So it sounds good initially, but then when you think about it, the conversations at the end of the year, if you haven't made your goals, are really hard. So I make sure that people that come to Live Oak understand that on the front end, because we're not going to pay you as if you'd made your goals forever if you don't do it.
And their goal is it's pretty strong
It
for
is
you
strong,
guys.
25 million.
That's and then, for example, if like they don't made it, what happens?
Right. They have a grace period. We don't cut their salaries or do crazy things initially. I mean, if they're showing, especially like if you got like like someone like, we talked about, that you and I worked together on. It's that individual has amazing production, but if he had like a bad year or two, right? Um, they're given a grace period of at least a year. And then we'll talk to them. We want to see that they're doing the right things to rebuild their pipeline. So are they going out meeting with referral sources? Are they attending, all the IBBA and whatever kinds of meetings that they need to go to rebuild those pipelines and those deals? But we work with them actively. It's not just say, okay, it's been 12 months, you didn't meet your goals, you're out, or we're going to cut your salary.
Yeah,
It's Yeah,
that's
we will cut their salaries though if after a couple of years, yeah, they haven't met their goals, sure.
well, yeah, of course.
Yes.
But the way you guys go about it sounds like everything.
Mm.
That's why, you are the number one lender, and you give, the customers and your employees, you champion them.
We
And
do.
and that's what makes you
Um,
guys successful.
right. We have what we call the three-legged stool model here. It's like if you take really, really good care of your employees, they will want to come to work and enjoy their jobs and take good care of the customers. And then after that, the shareholders will benefit.
It sounds
That's
like it.
that's really the strategy. So around here, um, this is a beautiful campus. We have two restaurants. We have a
I
huge
heard.
fitness center here. People are encouraged to work out during the day, to take good care of themselves, and to take care of their families. And so you figure most of the people that work here, if you take me and Chip and Lee Williams out, those of us that are older, the average age in the bank, I believe, is about 30. So the
Okay.
people that are kind of running around here today have on, it's going to be 60 here today. So I saw somebody with shorts
Sure.
on, they
Yeah.
have, but they're dressed casually because they're going to work out during the daytime, a lot of them. And, it's not business casual, it's tennis shoes casual.
Tennis shoes casual. So I
Mhm.
guess ongoing, Live Oak has been number one continuously. And so what do you think? I mean, it sounds like I know what they are, but the three things that sets you apart from
Oh,
everybody
wow.
else.
Three things. I would say number one is our culture. The way that we absolutely believe that we want to take care of our employees and our customers, right? So which is more important, employees or customers? That you don't have customers unless you've got good employees, right? So, but in this bank, taking care of your customers and treating your customers as if they're your only customers isn't just a slogan, right? We have conference rooms here that have one chair that's a different color, and that chair is meant to represent in that meeting the customer. So they have conversations and they say, well, is this really in the best interest of the customer?
Wow, I love your philosophies. I love
So
all.
I can give you translatable to like BDO terms in your world. So we made a few tweaks to our compensation plan this year for these lenders. And so as far as production credit is concerned, and as far as all the things that you need, production is important here too. The lenders here get paid, for example, if they have a large loan that they're submitting, and they could maybe go 7A pari passu, maybe it's $8 million, right? I'm just making this up, but let's say it's an $8 million loan, so $5 million 7A, $3 million pari passu loan. Or they could maybe go 504 and maybe have a $4 million first and then a debenture for three. So each transaction, 8 million. Oh, seven, let's say debenture of four.
For.
So each transaction was $8 million, right? But if you pay the lender only on the 7A and the pari passu and only on the first deed of trust on the 504, then the lender's innately going to want to push the 7A pari passu product, right?
Yep.
So here, um, we pay the lender on the gross loan, right? The debenture and the first deed of trust. I mean, that's credited to their production number as well as the 7A and the pari passu because we want them to give the customer both options so the customer gets to choose
Smart.
without being influenced by the lenders, how the lenders paid.
how the lender is paid.
Yeah.
Smart.
Just an example of what is it different than I don't know of any other lender in the country that pays or that attributes to production the debenture piece of a 504.
Well, again, that's what makes you guys so different.
Hmm.
And I did want to ask you a couple more questions before we wrap up. The new administration,
Oh, yes.
what do you feel that, the changes? What do you see happening?
Oh, wow. I'm probably not the best person to ask here.
Okay, let's keep it like straight line.
Let's
Yeah.
see. Oh, let's see. What do I see? I don't know. Crystal ball. I mean, we have a lobbyist in Washington named
Yeah.
Dawn Thompson, and we ask her that every day, right? We say, "What's going to happen next?" And she's, we're interested in all of the committee appointments, obviously, all the positions that affect um, Trump's desire to make small business loans, right? We definitely follow closely. Um, I think we've managed well under both Republican and Democratic administrations. So I can't see that there'll be challenges here, just like there were challenges under Biden, right?
Yeah.
So I just say we have to just take it as it comes. And the kind of challenges you're talking about affect every lender in the country. It's not just us. So to the extent that we can digest the change quickly and figure out which direction we want to go, I do believe that we can pivot faster than any other bank our size because SBA is still the core of who we are.
SB.
And so when something happens, it's all hands on deck to figure out, okay, what is the law? How are we going to interpret it? And to get it out to the lenders fast. So it's not just calling a referral source and saying, well, I'm just giving you the changes to the SOP because that's not really doesn't help the broker, right? Or the referral source. What they need to know is what your bank is going to do to interpret those rules.
I love that, Kay. I absolutely, because I've never heard that before, where you guys kind of like huddle together and be like, okay,
We
these
do.
changes and this is what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's what makes you guys so different. Oh my God, this is like so crazy. This is awesome. And then I
Um,
guess my last question, this has been so great. I love this. My last question, actually, so yes, you've been, in the industry for a while. And, when you started Live Oak, how do you think that, we could bridge the gap? We kind of touched upon it before, where more women are, in your position. What can we do?
I don't know. I would say that for me, a couple things that I didn't do right, right? I didn't have good public speaking skills. I still don't. I'm still a mess when I have to get up and talk
Hey,
publicly.
no, you're not. You're
Um,
beautiful.
no, but it's really, really hard for me. So I would say public speaking and learning how to listen. The meetings that I attend here, usually the person that just listens and then talks at the end is the brightest one in the room generally. I don't know. It just seems that way a lot of times. And I would say be open to outcomes. So when Chip hired me here at Live Oak, he called me and said, "Hey, basically, we're going to get the band back together. Do you want to join us?" And I said, "Well, let me think about it. What do you want me to do?" Right. And he said, "Well, come on up here, fly up to Wilmington, and I'll sit down. Let's sit down and talk about it." So I did that, and I sat down, and he said, "We really want you to come join us. This is what our business plan is." He gave me a copy of it. He said, "Now I want you to talk to David Lucht, the same David Lucht from Vine Street Trust, right?" So David's here. He brings in an old paper file. He opens it up. It was all tabbed and table of contents on the left and all the tabs. It was a beautiful file. And he said, "We want you to start SAG." I'm like, what? I said, and I was like, I don't know anything about that section. I've never read that section of the SOP. I know nothing about special assets, nothing. And he said, well, you can read it. He said, we'll figure it out. But he said, we're going to need somebody to start special assets. I said, well, I'm a lender, right? I don't
Right.
think I want to do that. I don't think I really want to do that. And he said, well, he said, I talked to him. I said, well, what would you pay me? He said, we will pay you $125,000. I'm like,
Oh, I'm in.
this is absolutely the truth. So I said, I just don't think so. Then I went home and I thought about it, and I thought, Chip is the guy in my life that I trust, that I think is probably the smartest human being I know, as far as an entrepreneurial ability beyond anybody I've ever known, and is a kind, humble human being that puts family first always. And I thought, I hitched my wagon to him before, and it served me well. And although this is a de novo bank, and we don't know where they're going to go, I I called him the next day and I said, I will do it. And he said, great. He said, good. He said, when you start, he said, I want you to write a check too for $125,000. And then in 6 months, I want another check for $125,000. I'm like, wait a minute, let me get this right. So you're paying me 125, but I show up with 125. He said, yes. He said, we're a de novo bank. We need capital. I said, I thought about it and I thought, well, okay. I was appalled, right? I was shocked. But then I thought, you know what? You either trust this guy or you don't. And I said, you know what? He's never led me astray, ever. So I said I would do it. And I wrote the check, and the rest is history. I mean, I took a big chance on a de novo bank, but behind a guy that I believed in wholeheartedly. And David Luck the same way. I didn't mean to just single out Chip. The two of them are incredible individuals and human beings. And I thought, they aren't going to lead me astray. So I guess being open to outcome is really hard I mean, I think for women more than anybody, but it's like I took a chance. I had to support myself, right? I was
Right.
going to take a pay cut and, but a chance, right? I had a chance with people I believed in. And my strategy was simple: make myself invaluable to these two guys. Do anything they tell me to do, and have a great attitude and do it the best way I could. So I spent 2 years in SAG, and then my role was to start the other verticals in the bank. It was an incredible opportunity
Oh
to
my God,
learn.
it
Yeah,
sounds
and it was, an amazing chance. But again, you have to be open to that, right? The first vertical that I did, I don't mean me personally, but I mean I was responsible for starting, was death care, funeral homes. I was like, oh,
What's
I couldn't think of anything worse, right?
that
Like,
like?
I was like, I don't know anything about funeral homes. I don't know anybody that's in that industry. I don't know any referral sources. I don't understand the business model. And I certainly don't like it. It sounds awful.
Yeah, sorry, it does.
But again, it's like, okay, but Chip saw it as a good business opportunity, and told me the reasons why. So again, it came back to, okay, make myself invaluable to this guy, do a great job on it, and keep my head down. And I'm kind of the detailed person, right? From my accounting background, I'm the person that likes to dig in and do the detail work. Somebody else can give me the idea, and I'll try to make it happen and bring it to life with other people in the bank. And
That's
that's what we did.
that's cool.
It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Oh, hi, I'm gonna give you funeral home. So
Yeah,
let's go take a
I want you to start a vertical on funeral homes with
when
funeral home lending. Yeah.
come on, when he said that to you, were you yeah.
I was like, what? Yeah, it's like special. I went from special assets, like, you know, to death and death care. And it was wild.
Is that in your verticals? What is I don't know if you could tell me this, the number one industry right now?
Oh, right now I don't know, but we don't, yeah, I can tell you, we don't publish numbers on our individual verticals, so I can't tell you about that. But I can tell you that when we were starting our first verticals, the way we did it was we had 10 variables that we looked at for every single industry. So we took the NAICS code list
No.
and we sorted it. We force ranked it by 10 different criteria. I didn't, believe me, I don't have the brains to do this, but the IT team here, the developers did.
Yeah.
And it was everything from loss rate to how many loans were been booked in the industry to, perceived marketability, pricing, our ability to enter the market, any risks that we saw. There were 10 variables. So we ranked every single NAICS code from 1 to, I think we did the first 100, according to our criteria. And it was easy then. We just started at number 1 and went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We just ticked them off.
That's it. You just took them off. How,
Yep.
what are like an, a smart way?
It was a
And
smart way to do it, right? But it was, I didn't think of it right. It wasn't me. I was the person, but I was able to use it and then do my job.
right. I mean, everything you're saying is so, it's not simple, but it brings it back to just do it this way. And I think along the way, with the different softwares and, everything else out there, I think do you think it gets kind of complicated when, anything from, yeah, like the videos, the different personalities, you guys bring it, it's simplicity. And I think
I don't think there's anything simple about what we do.
not simplicity. Okay, wait, that's not the right word. Smart ideas.
Yeah,
Smart
I think,
ideas that make sense.
yeah, this bank is open to new ideas, very much so. So if an employee, like we've had lenders that have decided that they want to be involved in, I don't know, maybe community waterworks projects, right? Things like that, or the environment, some aspect of the environment. And they've done the research on it, done a white paper on it, presented it to the leadership team here. And if it makes sense, they're allowed to do it. They're allowed to work on that and develop that idea into a platform that we can lend on.
Yeah, everything, well, you support them and you
Mhm.
make a way for them. And that's sometimes what's lacking in, the banks and non-banks today. So that's what you guys, it makes you number one.
Oh,
And
thanks. We didn't set out to be the number one lender by dollar volume, I don't think. I remember when sitting around a table like this, when I remember thinking with David Luck, I remember us thinking, wow, if we could get to $100 million a year funded loans, we would
yeah,
be like, whoa, this is so cool. And now we approve that probably every week.
isn't that, I mean, it's
Mhm.
amazing. And it, my look at me. I
Yeah.
can't talk. And usually I'm in it for words. So it's just like, do you think that all right, you hit 100 million and each pivot point of how you grow is kind of like, all right, we can do this.
Yeah, I think it's more here about being, the best bank for America. It's kind of like being the best source for small businesses in this country. That's really what we want to be for no matter what their needs are financially, we want to be able to supply it. Whether it's a loan or a treasury relationship, whatever it might be, we want to be able to supply it. So it's more important. I mean, obviously, production and profitability are super important to us. Um, but it's also the bigger picture is to be the best small business bank for America.
And I think that I gotta tell you, Kay, you are a light. You are
Thanks.
poised,
That's sweet.
you're smart, you're driven, you are an out of the box thinker that really paved the way you're one of the women that paved the way for me to do what I'm doing. And I think you're great.
Thanks.
I really think
That's
that
sweet of you.
I would love to have you, back on, but I know we've known each other for a little, but
Yeah.
I loved doing this today. And
Thanks. Thank you. So I did too. So it's very, very enjoyable.
yeah, I really enjoyed, getting to know you, and you are one of the smartest women I know.
Oh, I
Please take
feel
that.
so not that way. Thank you so
I
much.
know. I feel like you don't take compliments that well, so please take this.
Thank you.
You're one of the, I'm going to say it again. Poised,
Thank you.
smartest,
Thank
bright,
you.
out of the box thinker.
Thank you.
And I definitely want to have you back on again. And
Okay.
I love
Thanks.
getting to know you.
Thank you so much. Same here.